How's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to a Monday. It is the Earthmaster out here, October 7th, 2024. It's about 10:56 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows looks like a 1.0 up into Alaska. We'll get to earthquake activity here in just a little bit. I want to cover the hurricane activity first with Category 5 Milton here. An absolute beast of a tropical system. Goodness, this thing has intensified literally overnight in about 12 hours or so from a Category 1 to an extreme Category 5. And it's got maximum sustained winds of 175 miles per hour, possibly greater in there. Look at that well-defined eye wall of this hurricane. It is slowly trekking here to the east-northeast and is expected to hit the Florida area very soon here, looking at landfall sometime on the day. Far as landfall, the strongest feature of the eye wall sometime on Wednesday evening potentially. Right now there are hurricane watches up in effect there across the area of the western coast of Florida. I'm sure that will turn into a hurricane warning, which is the more serious of the weather advisory there. So right now, current position here, just off the Yucatan, Mexico area. It is expected to remain a Category 5 hurricane as it makes its way up to the Florida area. Now, there's not a whole lot in the way that would prevent this thing from, continuing the strength that it has. If we look at some of these weather models here, the expected path or the expected intensity guidance, these were a little bit on the lenient side, minimum side here a couple days ago, right? With a couple models forecasting Category 5. Now all of them are pretty much up in Category 4, Category 5. It's a Category 5 right now, so it will remain strong. Now the question is if it's going to weaken any as it makes its way towards Florida. There isn't anything in the way that would prevent this thing from remaining a Category 5 strength hurricane. If anything, we got to watch this here. This little tip of the Yucatan area could potentially allow some drier airflow to funnel into the tropical system there. And that could potentially weaken it slightly, but that's a big if. But it is expected to, remain a very strong hurricane as it makes its way towards the Florida area. No offset here on the track guidance. Everything's pretty consistent with a Tampa, Florida eye wall hit. And there's mass evacuations going on out there right now. It's good that they're that folks are taking advantage of the area or of the time right now, because this thing is coming. It may be a little distance off here in the Gulf, but it's coming, and you don't want to be stuck there at home around the Tampa area or anywhere up and down the coast there when a Category 5 hurricane comes in. No joke. This is a pretty big deal. Look at the pressure down here. Goodness. 911 MB. That's 26.90 inches. That's a super strong hurricane. Very low central pressure. That's why we got that well-defined eye wall kicking up there with Milton. So big deal. A lot of wording in here in terms of the potential hazards. So just, major storm surge expected out there. Just in Tampa Bay alone, 8 to 12 foot storm surge, and various other areas out here. No joke, folks. So we'll check back on that a little bit later on this evening sometime, as it's just spinning out there in the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Very warm temperatures, not a whole lot in the way. It's quite rare to see a Category 5 out there stir up, and in such a short amount of time. Rapid intensification there of that hurricane took place here in the last 12 hours. It's pretty crazy. All right, earthquake activity. Idaho up here shaking. Where's on the Idaho area? It looks like just outside the Dillon, Montana. That's what they have it set at here. Yeah, that's going to be Montana. 7 miles east of Dillon. It looks like 4.1 earthquake. Now that's a ways away from the Yellowstone area. There's various tectonic plates or fault systems here. It's Monday. Fault systems. I'm waiting for the caffeine to kick in. And hard to say exactly which one this 4-pointer struck on. Maybe the Sweetwater Fault, maybe an extension over there. But either way, it looks like it was felt across the area around Dillon, Bozeman, Montana as well, picking it up. A few responses coming in, about 19 there from Butte, Montana, even picking it up, 85 miles away, 85 kilometers away. So a little bit of a shaker going on out there across the Montana area. I bet you that showed up pretty nicely here across the Yellowstone seismos. Let's see, is it working? Yes, it is. It is working. So it looks as though there's a 4-pointer, obviously, right? That's one of the more defined signatures on the graph here. Just for example, this one, that's going to be the 4-pointer. But looks like following that, there was a couple other earthquakes in there as well. Not quite the 4 range, maybe 3 magnitude earthquakes there, magnitude 3. Because that showed up mainly across this area, western areas of Yellowstone, which would make sense because that's closer to the Idaho and Montana area. But they did show up. And so those are not just little microquakes. Those are probably a magnitude 2.5 or 3 on the magnitude scale. And it's not going to be this 1.2 that stirred up closer to Yellowstone. That's a much smaller seismograph reading if we were to look that up. But 4.1 late last night. There's been a handful of other earthquakes in there as well. Again, probably around the 2.5 to 3 range, and they're not being reported out here, even though they're showing up pretty nicely on the seismograph stations there. Showed up at Maple Creek, Purple Mountain, Borehole area, West Boundary, Hepkin Lake area. So, not for sure why they're not reporting that. Maybe they'll get to it today, but there's been another couple earthquakes following that event. As far as anything of localized activity at Yellowstone, there's not a whole lot. Now, there is some type of reading here around the Norris Junction area. This right here could be an adjustment on the station. That's what it looks like to me. Now, if that, just say, for example, that could be something that you would see at an active volcano or super volcano, maybe some type of magma movement. But that's not the case because that would show up, magma movement's going to show up on a broad scale. It's not just going to be localized to one station if that is what's actually happening. So it looks like it's just some type of instrument adjustment there across the Norris Junction area, because I don't see it out there across any of the other seismograph stations. So sometimes we get these little errors reporting or adjustments taking place there. So I root out the possibility there, which is it's not magma. As far as any earthquake activity goes, aside from those in Montana, let's see, maybe a little spiky one right here. This could be the that 1-pointer, 1.2, potentially around 4 o'clock in the morning. But aside from that, a little bit of shaking going on out here across the West Coast in general, Intermountain West areas as well. Cascadia subduction zone quiet up north, Northern California here, a handful. 1 2.6 this morning so far. This area has seen a little bit of swarming out here along the plate boundary and also up here across the Cascadia fold and thrust belt. 1.9 here a couple days ago, and also a 1.3. So we're getting little signs here, some crustal strain in these very shallow earthquakes here up at the Cascadia. So we're just kind of watching that. 324 years ago since we've seen the last big one out here. So we know strain is built up there. We just don't know exactly when it's going to pop. Bay Area, fairly quiet. Southern California, getting a little bit of movement here on the Garlock Fault shear zone, 1.2 outside of Mojave. A couple other earthquakes in there as well in the last 24 hours. Far as anything above 2.5 today, there's nothing being reported here across Southern California. Mostly microquake activity, a handful of earthquakes there across the Fontana area where we've been seeing a little bit of earthquake swarming there. A couple more today, it looks like 2.1 and a 1.6 today in that area. Some movement scattered out across the Los Angeles area as well. And the San Andreas Fault remains steady. It's holding on strong, but I don't know how much longer it can withstand the strain that's out here. There's a lot of strain out here, folks. It's been building up here for over 300 years. I believe the last one was back in 1690, the full rupture here of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, which is capable of an 8.1. So no swarming going on across the extensional fault boundary down here, but we'll keep an eye on that. That's one thing that's lacking. We should have seen some swarming out here, but seems to be absent with all this other earthquake activity we've been seeing. So let's take a look here at. I'm kind of curious. Let's see how many 4-pointers we've had so far this year. Not 4.5, but we're going to go, let's just do 3.5, and then we can root out the other earthquakes here. I want to go back a little bit. Now, you know what? Let's just go ahead and go 4.0. And I want to see what we got here for Southern California and all the activity. Now, we can't really utilize the Ridgecrest area where they had that 6.7 and 7.1 back in 2019. So I'm going to try not to cover that area, but I do want to cover in general the Southern California region without including the Ridgecrest area up here. So we'll lower that just a tad bit. Let's kind of see what we got out here. I really don't want to include that. I went back, to the year 2000. Ooh, it's taken a long time. Well, that's not too bad. 210 earthquakes. But a lot of these 4-pointers have stirred up here since, basically this year. Let's see how many we've got. 1, 2, 3. We got a lot, including that 5-pointer there across the area of Bakersfield. And this area alone seen a handful of 4-pointers out there. Looks like maybe they even added some after the fact, because I don't remember there being that many 4-pointers here from that 5.2. That's a lot of 4-pointers there. So looks like there was some activity back in 2005 in that area. Some 4s out there, but literally there's way more 4s out here this year than at any time in terms of earthquake activity in general, not associated with a main event out here. We've just seen various 4s all over the place, and of course, many 3s and 2s out there on an elevated level as well. The Malibu area being one of these regions that have had some 4s out there. There's one earlier this year, and then another 4.7 out there. Last one in this area, as far as historical goes, is a 4.4 back in 2009 around this area. But things have been on the increase out here, folks, a lot. Swarming 4.0. Looks like we had a little bit of activity back in February along this area. Very close to the San Andreas Fault, right at the end. It always seems to stop right there, but one of these days, that's what I'm waiting for. There's so much activity around the San Andreas Fault. I feel like that alone could be enough to trigger the bigger one out here, but I think if we start seeing a swarm down here, very close to the southern tip of the San Andreas Fault, that could just be enough to push it over and trigger the big one in a domino effect. But either way, strain out here has been quite heightened and elevated. So we still got to be on guard out here. I just wanted to look at all the activity here in the last couple years or so. Just modify this real quick here. I want to go to let's just check that here in roughly about the last year or so. See the majority of these earthquakes from this year. There's only 2 that were not from this year. So we're looking at 18 earthquakes of magnitude 4.0 and above this year alone in Southern California. So that's a fairly elevated amount. I think Dr. Lucy Jones mentioned there that this takes somewhat the record here since about 1986. So a lot of things happening out here in Southern California right now. But today, specifically today, handful of smaller microquakes, just kind of watching it. It's been elevated over here across the globe here recently in the last 24 hours, with various areas seeing some uptick in earthquake activity. Got a earthquake coming into the Mariana Islands. This one pretty deep, 193 miles. So that could trigger some further escalated activity out there. Those deep earthquakes tend to ramp things up out here. New Zealand area, looks like things are toning down a little bit down there. Let me go check out the GeoNet servers here real quick, and we'll see what we got. Go to GeoNet. The last one they're reporting is going to be a 2.4. They're yesterday time. They're well into the future. So let's take a look here at the earthquake drums. See if we got any activity here recently. It doesn't look like it. Most of those 2s and whatnot from just about 20 hours or so ago, showing up there on the seismos. So it looks like things toning down a little bit there across New Zealand after somewhat elevated activity there across the Cook Strait area, right? Yeah, right through here. That's the area that's seen the 5.1 and a 4.7. USGS was reporting that as a 5.1, but it was much stronger than that. GeoNet servers reporting that as a 5.7. So things toning down slightly out there right now. Not a whole lot in Hawaii. Looks like a little 1.7 stirring up out there right now. Some deeper activity over here. Look at that. 5-pointer showing up in a little odd location over here. Don't see too much activity out here across this area, but this is a fairly deep earthquake. Well underneath the Venezuela area. So things could start to get a little bit more active out here in this area. Major subduction zone region. A couple of smaller earthquakes up here. Let's see what else we got. Not a whole lot going on through the rest of the country up here as far as earthquake activity goes. And of course they're waiting on Milton down there. Tampa, look at that. All that storm surge water will be ramping up into the bay. I'm just glad to see a lot of people are taking this seriously. A Category 5 is no joke, folks. That can be quite deadly out there, so get out of that region if you're in there. Listen to the local authorities, that's for sure. South America area, most of this activity from last night. A couple deep earthquakes there underneath the San Antonio de los Cobras area of Argentina. All right, space weather activity here, folks. Well, surprisingly, it came late. I don't know what was going on here with these the last few CMEs, but they've been off or a little weird lately. Arriving late or not showing up at all, but we've had some type of event stir up last night. Still continuing here with amplification of the auroras, and the KP index staying somewhat elevated. Last night we've seen G2 storming conditions there, with auroras reported even down into like the Kentucky area. So a pretty significant aurora event last night. Came up out of the blue, I think after a lot of us had given up on it. It finally decided to show up. Still seeing a BZ component there of a southward tilt, which is going to be right here. This is open, pointing south here of this line. That allows for the amplification of auroras, even if it's very minimal solar wind stream. So it looks like that's going to continue. It's continuing at least there across portions of, I'm guessing Iceland there has a spectacular view right about now. Let me go check that out real quick here, live from Iceland, where, let's see. Well, it's still a little light out there. But possibly could actually see there's a little bit of greenery out there. That could be some of it right now. But once it gets dark, then I think that'd be a little bit better. That's a live look there from Iceland at the Grindavik area. Okay, let's go back here. Go back to my space weather activity here. So, yeah, this could continue into tonight. If this remains elevated, expect further auroras down here across North America once it's dark. The detailed forecast, this is what they're putting out. But if things remain elevated, that will be much stronger. Pending things remain as they are right now. Flare threat still elevated, 30% chance for X flare, M flare at 75, C flare around 99% chance or so. We do have a number of sunspots here that are currently facing the Earth, and they're fairly complex. This regional sunspot out here saying goodbye. We'll see that back here in a couple weeks or so, if they hold up. So we're left with this area down here. It's still fairly complex. Got to watch this area. It's starting to rotate a little bit further into Earth-directed view. This one has a well-defined split core. Not really expecting too much from that with that type of setup. And then another sunspot out on the eastern limb. As far as any far side sunspots that we got to watch, let's go see what we have here. This was put out yesterday, but still gives us a general idea of what to expect. So it's about a day behind. This area is now further off on the eastern limb. Couple sunspots up here that will be coming around the eastern limb. This, even though this is a split image, this is one sunspot here, this area. Going to be this one here and this one. That's actually one sunspot just split here on the flat scale map. So that looks fairly large. We'll watch for that here in the coming days as it comes around the northeastern limb of the sun. Alberta, beautiful image, but this I think that was just early in the evening, but things really kicked up overnight for sure. All right, what else do we have here, folks? Check out the numerical model here of Milton. I'd say I think that's going to go in the record books here. We're going to have to watch that. Wanted to go over here to the Florida area and see what the GFS model is calling here. Again, category 5, and that's showing 965 on the pressure, but it's way below that. If anything, it shows it's strengthening from the GFS model before hitting landfall there around the Tampa area, just north of there it looks like. But that's on the eastern side of the eye wall, which is not the best place to be. So, yeah, pretty much a worst case scenario. As far as anything in the future goes, a little slow out here right now. Not for sure why. Maybe a lot of people on that site. Anyway, folks, big deal with the Milton. Take advice there from the law enforcement. Get out of the area. Storm surge is going to be again a pretty big deal. A lot of flooding going on there across that area with some at least moderate. I'm sure that may raise up a little bit to the high risk. Storm surge warning watches right now. I believe there's looks like storm surge watch, not warning because it's not imminent. It's still here in a couple days, but that will be upgraded to a storm surge warning very soon. And of course, that includes all the Tampa Bay area. So pretty crazy. Almost traffic looks like a nightmare getting out of there, but it's best to get out of there now before things really start to ramp up. Up to 12 feet, peak storm surge forecast across a broad area out here. So Alrighty, I'm going to jump out here and just keep an eye on things. Seismograph stations here all look fairly calm. A couple are offline, but we'll see if they come back or not. Parkfield station there. Yeah, so pretty quiet out there right now, folks. Have a good day. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening, unless something major happens. We try to jump in whenever there's some elevated earthquake activity out here. And right now, it's just a little on the neutral side. But that can change in the blink of an eye. Have a good one. Catch you guys later.